So our first panel on AI Foundation will be led by Murad Al-Haj, and the panelists will be Sam Azar, Peter Kairouz, Natalie Saadeh, Hadi Salman, and Mashhoor Sulh. Welcome to the booth.
First of all, thank you all for being here so early, and thanks to everybody who's present. So as we kickstart this day, we want to start with a panel of builders. So the folks here are on the bleeding edge of technology. And what we're trying to do here is to quickly touch upon different topics in AI foundations around limitations, around breakthroughs, around impact on society, and basically how Lebanon and AUB can benefit from this evolving AI economy. We're going to leave quite a bit of time for questions, so please, if you have any questions, start thinking about them, and we're going to have a Q&A session towards the end. So to get started, I would like to ask folks here to each introduce themselves and tell us about a recent breakthrough that they're most excited about. So we're going to start with Sam. Sam, please.
Yeah, so I'm Vice President of Software Engineering at NVIDIA. I essentially put GPUs in a cloud and then build platforms. When we started before the AI revolution, recently we put the GPU just to learn how we can operate at scale. And we put it and we tried to do gaming and interactive graphics. And this is what I continue to do. And then now, obviously, we cover as well AI, inferencing, and other things as well. As for the things that I'm excited about, this week, actually, something popped on the news and I was surprised about is Evo 2. It's a model for genomics. This is not my background in biology, but I was very, very surprised to see that technology can help identify pattern in nature that can help us hopefully predict some of the diseases or something related to the gene. It was super exciting to hear.
Thank you, Sam. Peter?
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter. I'm at Google. I'm a researcher. I also lead a team. What we are trying to do is we're trying to look ahead to the next generation of foundation models. And we believe that we've already trained on the whole web. So we're thinking about what is it going to make these models even better in the future? If we really strive to get to anything that looks like AGI, what sort of data sources are very important? And they're siloed for good reasons, for safety, privacy, proprietary confidentiality. So our team looks a lot at ways in which we could improve these models way beyond their capabilities today. As for the thing that I'm most excited about is we've been seeing a crop of open weight models that are extremely competitive and very powerful and much, much smaller than the frontier models. And I think that's amazing because being able to tap on something that's very powerful by running it locally, whether it's on your computer or even on your phone or tablet, is extremely good. If you want to own your data, if you want to not have to pay per token endlessly. So that's going to create a lot of opportunities, I think, for students, for researchers, for governments, businesses. And I think that my prediction is in the next 5 years, we're going to run 20 billion parameter models on maybe even people's phones. It's going to take some time for us to get there, but I think we might get there, and it can unlock a lot of great things for just the consumer.
Natalie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. I lead teams at Meta that build AI products. So we really apply a lot of the state-of-the-art technology into building products that are either consumer-facing or internal that land impact for the company. And in terms of breakthrough, what comes to mind is something more practical that I'm sort of seeing happen every day. And it's really the shift in how we work with AI and how AI has been helping us sort of extend our brain power. So for the longest time, I think we were really limited by how many variables we can hold in our brain at one time, or how to really reason through things, or how fast we can synthesize things. And with AI, we're seeing that really shift, and the ceiling for what we could do before is really changing. I'm experiencing that every day within my team and my work at Meta. Whenever we started, on the team leveraging AI, it was very basic prompting. It was a question and you get an answer. And then bit by bit, we started layering in more, adding more context, our transcribed meeting notes, our code, our every artifact that we had. And then we started layering in actions. And that's when the shift really hit me of I don't need to go to chase down information anymore, but the information can really come to me. And I think that's a really powerful thing for us to really develop things much faster. And along the lines of what Sam said, in terms of where it gets really exciting is when you look at something like the medical field and science and seeing the breakthroughs that are now enabled because of AI. That is really powerful. I read about this model that this AI system that can now predict heart disease from a simple EKG without any expensive imaging or anything like that. And to me, what that means is we're now capable of doing things that previously we couldn't as humans do at that scale. I think this is the beginning of it, and it's really exciting to see what AI can help us achieve.
Thank you, Natalie. Hadi?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hadi. I lead a research team at OpenAI working on reasoning. So we basically try to figure out how to make models like GPT-5 smarter, more agentic, basically capable of automating more and more of what we do in our daily lives. And the thing that most excites me is very similar to what Natalie mentioned, is basically the agentic nature of the models these days and the acceleration that we're seeing internally at OpenAI, but also externally in all the companies around the world. A lot of the things, basically this is something that's happening in every industry. A lot of the junior kind of junior level skills are being more and more automated, and a lot of the things that are redundant, basic, are not needed anymore. And the models are just capable of automating a lot of these types of tasks. So, which is enabling people and employees to multiply, to be much more productive and multiply their impact. And it's actually transforming the world. So we are definitely in the inflection point, in my opinion. And yeah, it's extremely exciting what will happen next.
Thanks, Hadi. Mashhoor?
Thank you, Murad. My name is Mashhoor. I'm a principal and chief scientist for Amazon Buy For Me feature. That's a multi-agent framework that does allow people on Amazon to buy off Amazon website, things that are not on our catalog. I lead a team of 30 scientists there working on everything from agent and model training to RAP systems. Okay. RAP system, which is retrieval augmented perception and planning, and also offline extractions. And I actually have been in Amazon probably for over 10 years, working in different various areas of machine learning. So before that, I was on mostly devices and mostly work on multimodal fusion and computer vision. What's exciting me about next, I believe next is again, me going back to devices. I think it's the era, our next few years will be a lot of exciting things emerging on embodied AI. And basically because the whole problem space of, how do we solve robotics and embodied AI is very simplified now with vision language models. And now we have vision language action models that are emerging. And I think this is going to be a game changer. And a lot of these broken pieces that we had to do before, and which break the angle of perception, planning, and action for these autonomous devices and actually robotics, now will be simplified with one simple big models. And I'm thinking that will be a game changer, at least, and those will be also the thing that comes after frontier models, which is the application space that's going to be expanding beyond that.
Thank you, Mashhoor. Yeah. Sam, let me start with you. So basically, we see the cost of hardware and electricity skyrocketing. And at what point do you think it will become economically and physically unviable to scale such AI systems? And when do you think we're going to see some return on investment on all the capex that's being spent out there?
Yeah, that's on the mind of a lot of CEOs, right? I think we have to take a step back and look at the big picture. If you look at it, there are probably 7 or 8 or even more layers to the scalability of such systems. You mentioned energy and chips, right? But you can add obviously infrastructure, AI models, applications, adoption, and maybe regulations, right? Okay. So if you look at all these different stages, each one of them could represent a bottleneck and a challenge by itself, especially because they don't actually coordinate with each other, and they run typically at different speeds, right? Now, at the same time, this could represent an opportunity, right? So you see now CEOs and companies trying to take what they have, as long as it's good, and there are now a lot of things that are good enough, and they are trying to specialize. They are going after niche markets, and for example, coding. We have finance, we have legal, we have defense, and the hope is to generate enough money to go and fund other areas in that all these layers that we talked about. Whether it's chips or energy or AI research, etc. Now, at the same time, bottlenecks in the history of technology represent an opportunity because it triggers a lot of innovations. We saw this in chips. I deal with it at NVIDIA. Like when a GPU is a bottleneck, you have a lot of startups popping up and trying to offer alternatives to the GPU. Our GPU is still better, but still, the idea is that there will be innovation coming when you hit these bottlenecks. On the energy side, I think there is an aggressive race now to try to solve nuclear fusion. I think there is also a race towards coming up with a more efficient nuclear reactors that are probably smaller, more efficient, low cost, and if you in the in the future, sometime in the future, I think maybe we'll harness the energy of the stars in space. So. The bottlenecks trigger innovations, and this is actually super exciting. So we cannot just look at it just for the short term. I'll leave with this somewhat metaphysical thought. I personally believe that the universe is computational in nature. I'm not saying that the universe is a computer or we are living in a simulation. I'm saying that if you look at these physical phenomena, how they are described with mathematical equations, how these combination and replication dynamics seem to form the foundations of computation. If this is the case, I feel that there is ultimately no limit to scalability.
That's awesome. I love how you're looking at these limitations as opportunities rather than things that are holding us back.
Yep.
What about data centers in space?
It's coming. Some people are working on it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. So, Peter, you mentioned basically the amount of data being there, and there is clear evidence that the human-generated web data is decreasing. And basically, we know that those systems need high-quality data to be able to grow and scale, right? And so we're hitting this data wall these days. In your opinion, what are ways around this problem, and how can we continue to, improve these models when the amount of high-quality data is getting reduced?
Yeah, that's a very good thing, and in fact, very timely as well, because I don't know how much the audience is familiar. There's these things called scaling laws in AI, which study if we increase the parameter count, if we increase the compute, and if we increase the data, how does the model perform? What kind of a loss do we expect to see, and what sorts of tasks do we expect to unlock? And so far, they've been working, but there's a lot of people who believe that we're done in terms of the data. Where do we get more data? So there are multiple avenues. Avenue number one is we're taking these AI models and we're integrating them into apps, whether it's chatbot apps, whether it's productivity tools, email, documents, sheets, and users are interacting with them. And I don't know about you, but if you've used any form of AI inside of an app, like Outlook or Gmail, the experience sucks. I don't like the integration of Gemini in Gmail, and I work at Google. And that is just because even though these models are really good at benchmark, in many ways they are benchmark maxed, they're not designed for the kinds of applications that are being deployed for. And so the first avenue that I think is extremely important is to collect that user feedback and signals. Where are they working well? Where are they failing? And why are they failing? And people give thumbs up, thumbs down, they give feedback. Sometimes they rewrite some answers. And sometimes they just cannot complete the task. So if you ask the model to write you a document or an email and it just doesn't give you anything that's meaningful, you don't insert it into the email, that's a feedback signal. So one very important avenue is user signals and feedbacks. The other one is, and as Natalie and Hadi mentioned, the agentic behavior of these models is allowing them to call tools, to simulate and run code, to write even unit tests, and then run the unit tests against the code. And then with robotics, we can try to actually perform interesting things and see if we can complete tasks. So for the use cases where we can attempt to solve a problem and we have a clear signal of whether or not we were able to solve the problem and to what extent we made progress towards solving that problem, we can try to simulate these kinds of things many, 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 many times and then reject a lot of paths that the model took, and then we can accept maybe 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100. And that ends up giving us very, very high quality data that we can use then to improve the model. So we can reshape the distribution of the data that we train the model on, and that's proven to be very useful. And the last avenue that I work on extensively is the majority of the data is actually siloed, whether it's consumer data, whether it's enterprise data, finance, medical, education, even the data that we have on our phone. And in my opinion, that's very important data, but it's also very tricky data because there are security concerns, there are privacy concerns, there's all sorts of technical regulatory issues that are involved here. So how do we unlock this data safely, responsibly, and how do we attribute, there's ownership. And so content creators produce high quality data and they just don't want their data to end up fueling the next generation model without them being properly rewarded. So today we have this model where people upload videos to YouTube and they get a cut of ads. But I think that in the future, their data is probably going to be very useful for training models or even serving models at inference, and they need to participate in the revenue that's generated by using these models. So we're trying to figure out how to incorporate these data sets, but in a responsible way, and it's tricky technologically.
Yeah, definitely. The balance between, the ownership of data and training the models, that's very interesting. Thanks, Peter. Natalie, so Peter mentioned agents and agentic AI. So tell us more about how's that different from the chatbot interface that most people are familiar with, and what are basically challenges in real-world applications?
Sure. So the simplest way I would differentiate chatbot from AI agents is chatbots respond, and AI agents can actually pursue a goal. So chatbot is like a turn-based. You ask a question, you get an answer back. But an agent can do so much more, can really maintain state across different, multiple steps, can leverage tools, it can interact with different systems, and can even take, actions on your behalf. So that really moves away from, something that's only about natural language generation and into something that resembles more of a workflow execution. So the model is only one part of a big orchestrated system. And I really like how Peter covered it because it's really easy to get very excited about, a demo. You can really put together a demo of an AI agent working very well, very quickly. And I think a lot of enterprises have fallen into that trap. You've seen a lot of, I'm sure you've seen a lot of articles of enterprises pouring millions and millions into AI and not getting the return on investment that they thought they would. And I think it comes down to really understanding the production challenges, and putting a system in production is different from a demo. And to speak about the challenges of in practice, what I've seen, I think I can group them into 3 main categories. The first one being reliability. With a chatbot, it's very easy to know when things have gone wrong, and the failure is sort of limited. It's in the worst case, you're going to get one bad answer. But when you talk about an AI agent, then one bad decision could lead to 10 downstream actions that you didn't want to happen. So the errors really compound and cascade down. And in that type of system, it's really important to have the right controls. The second big thing, I think, is around safety. And I can give concrete examples here. My team has built Meta's AI recruiting assistant. So that's an AI system that we put in front of candidates that helps guide them through the hiring process and automates part of the hiring. And you can imagine what it means to put a public-facing assistant in front of people. You'll have people who are probing for vulnerabilities, and people who are trying to fast-track their application or get hired or access internal systems. And so what we learned really quickly while building that is it's very important to define what the agent should not do as much, or maybe it's even more important than defining what the agent should do. So we spent a lot of time talking about, setting the right guardrails, building those guardrails, testing cases that weren't on the happy path to know how the agent was doing, understanding topics that it shouldn't answer, in order to build all that, scaffolding and boundaries for it to operate really well. And the third one I would say is around observability. Really understanding what the agent saw, the action it did, and why it did that. And I think that also comes into play with a lot of evaluations. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to evaluate the agents and how to evaluate in scenarios we didn't even think would happen in production. So I think those challenges are real when it comes to production systems, and like Peter mentioned, it's really important to think about the user and that end experience, and build with the right guardrails. It's not about maximizing the autonomy for the model. It's more like, how do I deploy the system that's well instrumented, but also constrained autonomy so that it can achieve the goal and be useful for users.
Thank you, Natalie. Hadi, let me ask you about AI taking jobs.
Fun question. Everyone loves this.
We keep hearing about that, right? And but in your opinion, as somebody who's very close to frontier models, in the next 5 years, what kind of jobs or knowledge work you think are going to be automated? And what kind of jobs would be more valuable in the age of AI?
Yeah. Okay. So when the AI hype actually started, maybe 2 years ago, when ChatGPT was introduced, it was basically a chatbot. As Natalie said, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. It was nice. People used it. You can learn things. You can ask it to write some code, and it gives you some code. It's sometimes broken, sometimes not broken. You iterate with it, and you get some stuff done. But as AI progressed, it became more and more agentic, which also Natalie talked about, and it actually started like doing useful stuff, like doing tasks, like tasks that you ask it to do something, it does it. And at this state right now, as of today, these agents are capable of doing like a lot of like junior level tasks. For example, in coding, they can easily implement small features, debug some like part of the code, do some do like small PRs here and there. So they definitely operate at the level of not exceeding an intern or like a junior developer. So in my opinion, at least in the coming 5 years, a lot of the junior level entry across a lot of domains, including coding, including finance, anything that requires basically like basic use of computers, Excel, basically tools that doesn't require much sophistication, more about like it's like redundant stuff. Maybe you have to do like some data entry, some data analysis, basic stuff that like a junior employee who you just hired can do. Yeah. These, I can safely say these will be completely automated if they are not like already like being automated. Now this might sound scary, but it will allow people to, like we will require more and more to operate at like a senior level. So we will never, I think like we're gonna never be in a situation where the human is completely out of the loop, but we will be like operating more in situations where we need like, people who like operating more on the senior level, kind of like asking the right questions, making value of what these agents can do, and basically having a team of agents that you can prompt, operate, ask to do basic things, and you are kind of leading the orchestrating things, leading like small sub teams of agents. This with time will become more and more a reality. It's already happening. I can tell you like for sure at OpenAI, at Meta for sure. Like I know for sure like the 20% layoffs that's going to happen soon, which the rumors talked about, is mainly because of like this acceleration that's happening. So and like the crazy thing is that it's happening like literally it happened over the past it has accelerated a lot over the past 3 months. Cloud Code and like Codex, like I went to, I don't know, like to the New Year vacation for a few days. We don't have that much of a vacation for a few days, and came back, and literally everyone in the company is like using these tools like crazy. So like you literally sit down in the morning, you start like 10, 20, 30 parallel jobs. Okay, fix me this, do that, and you just like notice and like get results from these agents, and you see, okay, this is good, this is not good. You just are orchestrating. So the productivity has improved a lot, which means that with time, a lot of like the mundane tasks, small tasks is gonna disappear. Now this will require us even like training the new generation for updating or adapting how we actually even teach or train the new generation, which we're probably gonna discuss soon as well, because like we can't, we should assume that these junior level, entry level tasks are gonna be gone, and especially for like software-based skills. Now for maybe like more things that requires like hand skills, like these will be more and more valuable in my opinion. And I like, if you can see, I did an undergrad in mechanical engineering. I never worked in mechanical engineering, but maybe at some point I'll go back. I'll need to go back or do some stuff in my hands. So yeah, that part of the kind of like domains which requires actual like hands-on, like actually doing things in your hand, will probably not going to be automated unless we have like reliable humanoids, and this is going to take a while for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Hadi. And yeah, you're right. We're going to talk a bit about like things that people can do to be in this, because we want to give people hope.
Yeah, we're not doomed. That's very clear. There's hope.
A doomsday.
Thanks, Hadi. Mashhur, let me ask you, as those systems are scaling, right? Where do you think the next step function is going to be? Is it going to be like, where we're going to get this step function improvement? Is it going to be from pre-training, from post-training? Like we hear people talking about reinforcement learning, you know, we hear people talking about tools, you know, Natalie mentioned agents, right? Where do you think the big thing is going to come from?
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. I'll try to be as brief as I can, as try to explain what all these pieces are and for people context. When we speak about pre-training is like when we have all the, I think everything on the web and the books that we can put and have the model learn how to generate the next word. That's called pre-training. And the idea, when you do push all this data to these long, big transformer GPT kind of approach, GPT kind of models, it can learn how to predict the next word, but also it can store all the knowledge as much as possible in the parameters. And the output of that usually is unstructured. Like you can answer, it still looks like real answer, but it's not really in the format or in the way that is consumable, like a very nice consumable format. Pre-training at this stage is reaching the point of diminished returns. I think there's not much that can be done now with pre-training, at least that's my assessment, except for focus on more data cleanups, because architecture-wise, it's converging. Data, I think we keep adding more data, more books and stuff, but there's a lot of cleaning of data that could happen to improve that. And I think it's going to be like the next focus will be either on data cleaning or getting the more efficiency when you do pre-training, because pre-training is a very expensive process. You have to put all this data and expect the models to train them. So it's going to be more on optimizations and less of you can push a frontier in terms of accuracy or in terms of like improving accuracy on that. When we talk about post-training, this is once you get these models, you take them to post-training. Post-training is basically you do fine-tuning on these models to have more of coherent answers, and that's where reinforcement learning comes. There's various types of them, but the two most common ones is reinforcement learning with the human feedback. So you get the answers from the model, pass them to a human panel that rank the answers, which one is the top, the bottom, and you do send back to the model. You keep improving the model until the model gives you coherent answers. The second type is basically without a human in the loop called, it's more like, there are different terms for it, but one of the terms is like verifiable results. Now you take some kind of science like math or coding, and that's the most common thing that you know the outcome, but you feed the input for the model, the question and the query, and expect the model to get that outcome, but you are rewarding the model on the steps it's taken. Like the model taken, it figured out X, Y, Z, so you're doing rewarding the steps, but you know what's the outcome. It's verifiable. You can verify 1 + 1 = 2, right? This is how you do that, and the model becomes better than that. I think right now we are at the age where most of the gains we're seeing comes from this part, from the post-training. Reinforcement learning is still expected to still push, I mean, with different variations, push a frontier for another like 1 year or so before it itself becomes saturated. Unless some new architectures emerge after that, I think we still have room. I think you see now the competition is very heavy between the closed loop model, the closed weight models like OpenAI, Claude, and the open weight models. You know, mostly the China, from Alibaba's Qwen and DeepSeek. There's really like you could see every month we have somebody releasing a new way of actually doing the reinforcement learning and new results that's really beating the others in coding or beating the others in actually tool usage, which is considered also another thing of like verifiable results. The third one which we talked about, I think this is the one that I think we're still in the infancy, the child stage of which is going to grow, which is the agentic applications. As the other panelists already referred to, the complex. I mean, once you have one model now, you can unlock the capabilities by having the model play different roles. So you have multi-agents. You could define a role for different instances of the model, and each one would be an agent doing a task. And these agents could be even collaborating or competing, and depending how you structure that. Now you unlock more capabilities than just solve an equation or answer a code. You can have it write the code, verify a code, do like debug the code, this kind of like multi-agent. They can stretch it beyond that. Right now, I think there's a lot of challenges still in that space. I think there's some emerging frameworks, emerging things, but I think what's the main challenges that at least I can tell you from our application that we have seen is even with the frontier models, applying agents, the models that we have today, depending on the application, you still have domain knowledge gap in some of them because they've been trained to be general intelligence models. So like let's say, for example, for our Buy For Me multi-agent framework, we've seen, like, for example, it sees a web page, it doesn't understand the web page fully. Even though it has been trained enough on web pages, it doesn't understand certain colors or certain text or certain things still. So you have to figure out how to improve the models. And this is where, innovation comes from, using offline retrieval integrations. You have to deploy a lot of deterministic approaches with the models and make the models work together. And you have, like, I think we did refer to, the most important part is making sure that the models are doing the right step, which is the guardrails. I mean, we do a lot of the time is spent on designing guardrails. How do you make sure that when the model is given a task, an agent task to do task A, is doing task A correctly? And a lot of this really involve you going and capturing before and after and verifying that before and after is correct. And here again, you can use another model to do that. And that's also brings its own risks. Or you have to do deterministic approaches, also put it in code somehow to make it work. So to summarize, I think the next year and a half, we're still going to see post-training, still pushing the envelope. But I think we're going to start seeing more attempts to scale the application space, and we're going to see more people innovating in that space, how to design guardrails, how to do collaborative agents, how to do competing agents. And also now we start seeing, which is something we probably, if you guys about, a lot of really protocols now, like, how in wireless, you probably guys got from wireless, like how in wireless the protocols, like standardization of protocols. Now there's emerging protocols standardize how agent to agents can talk to each other. There's A2A from Google. There's MCP that was produced by Shopify. These are called protocols to help agents and models to talk to each other in a standard format where we make sure we can cross the next thing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mashhoor, for this overview. It's very helpful. Which takes me to the next question that I want to ask the panel. With this evolving landscape and as things are changing, what kind of steps can we take to help the Lebanese economy and make sure that the Lebanese economy is not left behind? Specifically, for example, where do you guys think we should be investing? Like, there's a panel in AI infrastructure next. I think, some of these topics will be discussed. But like beside data centers, like where we should be investing, is it foundational models? Is it frameworks? So I would love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, so I can maybe take a step at it. I think ultimately, to help Lebanon, we need to start thinking about a sovereign AI strategy. Mm-hmm. And with that, maybe there's some people already thinking about that. I don't know, but obviously the country has been going through a lot of upheaval, but we need to kind of think about a sovereign AI strategy where we have access to some sort of data that's our national treasure. We don't have a lot of resources as a country, but maybe we have other things. Maybe we learned over the years of dealing with upheaval. We know how to deal with catastrophes and response to issues and things, something like that. I don't know what it is, but there must be we should be able to identify certain data that belongs to our culture, our way of life, and things like that, and try to start with that as our basis. And then after that, we need to define a certain strategy for accessing the compute infrastructure. And this one is a little bit tricky, and I'm sure there will be more discussions down the line about that, how we can do that. Maybe at this point it's a little bit too restrictive. But if we have some friends and we can start in a phased approach, we can get to tap into the compute infrastructure with the data that we have, so that we can start defining the long-term sovereign AI strategy. This is what I would say.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of which, I think we have how many books in Japhet? Maybe that would be our treasure to digitalize and train. Tens of thousands? Yeah. 4 million? Okay, so that's something we can do.
Yeah.
And one thing that we need, assuming that we have this data is digitized, it's not only about being digitized, obviously, it's about extracting the value out of that. So hopefully, once we have the infrastructure and everything is integrated, I'm hoping one day, with a little bit of stability in the country, everybody can access this data and be able to question it and get some value and insights into. Maybe this is the solution for some of the issues that we see now of our belonging. Maybe our data will bring us together. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, Mashoor, please.
Maybe I'll try to also, like, in my opinion, I think there are few areas where I think Lebanese economy can benefit. I think the entry point for AI now, I mean, again, I'm not saying like, I mean, unless Gibran give us all the GPUs tomorrow, the Lebanon, assuming we don't have the GPUs, I think still the entry point, at least from application point for agentic stuff, while also using the open weight models to AI is really, has become so easy from the time when things started. And I think, I would really think that the Lebanese economy should start embracing, at least building applications using these models. Even there's actually, I think now also in terms of like compute and stuff, a lot of the emerging stuff are going to be low compute, going to be the still smaller models. I would think we should really try to be one step ahead in building those applications. Absolutely. I know training and post-training might still be difficult with compute needs and power needs, but I think application-wise, I think we can do that. And also data-wise, I agree with Sam. I think one of the things that I think maybe, like, again, as autonomous driving becoming the next frontier for embedded AI, I think it's about time to start planning how autonomous driving will work on unstructured road, right? Random roads like in Lebanon. I think, but that's really, there's a lot of countries have the same problem. So maybe we should start really getting that data and figure out how to actually train for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can add a couple of points as well. I think like on a high level, we should be able to benefit from AI in Lebanon by maybe like start and quickly transform or digitize Lebanon. Like right now, Lebanon is not really digitized. Yeah. And almost like not that digitized, I guess, like in many sects. And maybe without AI, this would have required maybe a lot of like engineers and a lot of like expertise to like, you know, do this digitization at scale. But now I think like we need maybe like few Lebanese who are pretty good and know how to use these models and can actually like start the transformation in Lebanon. This holds not only across like for the government or, you know, at the Lebanon scale, it's also for businesses. As Mashoor said, the kind of like the level, the ground is leveled between like, you know, people like startups which wanna start in Lebanon versus the US versus Europe in terms of talent, not in terms of like funding but at least in terms of talent. You can just start implementing your craziest idea with like yourself and like a couple of people, that's it, and build like very successful companies. Like most of the startups these days are like very few people and heavily utilizing AI. So if someone is starting a startup in Silicon Valley, they are using the same agent that you would use if you started a startup in BDD, for example. So I think this is a great opportunity. I always mention the same thing, great opportunity for developing countries to catch up and like actually get into the innovation, like get a fast track to the innovation, to the innovation world, essentially. And the third, I think, would be about like education. Like AI is definitely democratizing education. So like the Lebanese government should like emphasize that and we should like definitely transform the way we educate like in schools and universities, and literally every student like in Lebanon right now has like a private tutor that they can ask literally everything, and they can just like learn whatever they want. Like it's kind of crazy. Like I think the barrier to learn stuff these days is like extremely minimal by anyone in the world. So which is very, very exciting, and we should definitely leverage that in Lebanon to transform our people, our economy, everything essentially.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
So we're building an AUB GPU cluster with NVIDIA's help. But the idea is not just for AUB, right? Because you know, since I started 11 years ago, we've tried to bind together the higher education sector and tie it more to the schools. So we take responsibility for the schools because many, many years ago, when some of you were in elementary school, I read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and it struck me that people who acquire these different skills early tend to be more comfortable, tend to be exceptional. So reaching into the schools is a critical priority for us, not just in Lebanon and Syria and Palestine, Jordan, Iraq, and elsewhere. And we're trying to tie it also to the Tamam project, which is our, multi-stakeholder parents, teachers, communities, education program that's in 11 Arab countries now. So the whole idea is to try to elevate the society and not just the individual or even the university. But I love learning from you guys what's possible.
Thank you so much. And this actually, makes my second question more relevant, because what we wanted to ask the panelists here is that with the establishment of the School of Computing and Data Sciences, what kind of advice do you have to President Khoury and AUB to basically continue delivering stellar education in the age of AI?
I can start, give a shot at it. So I think there are so many things that can happen and should happen. So the first thing is that we should certainly be using AI in every single field at AUB and across Lebanon, obviously. But at AUB specifically, I would imagine this school would help other schools essentially adopt more and more AI and use that effectively in their, not only use it effectively in the keep other departments up to date on what that possibilities are. For example, in healthcare, medicine, mechanical engineering, anything really, any field that could benefit from AI. So this is at minimum what should happen. I think the other thing which is very, very critical is rethinking how we educate students. And this is a very tough question, and I really don't know what the right answer is. Because as I mentioned, a lot of the junior level kind of jobs are gonna be more and more automated. So when we train our students, we usually train them for these, we never train them to be a senior kind of developer. We train them to know how to code, for example, for software engineering jobs. We teach them basic data structures, algorithms, etc., so that they can start in companies and grow in these companies. I think the growth part we should update how we teach students so that maybe we collaborate with industry so that we can teach people to be senior engineers quickly. Or I don't know how that should work, but I think teaching them the skills I think teaching them the skills is good, is important. It will be always necessary because you need to understand what's going on. But I think we should update how the level of what we give students a lot, because they can accelerate their learning using these models, and they won't find jobs if they just focus on the basic skills. This is it's a sad thing, unfortunately, but it's a real thing. It's a reality that we need to adapt to. I don't know exactly how to do it, but we should think very, very carefully about this. Yeah, go.
So you're kind of almost saying, I was going to ask the question, I was waiting, but you're almost saying, at least from a soft discipline, software, or maybe things that requires a lot of reading of documents, maybe law, or you're almost saying people need to kind of go to the master level science, master of engineering instead of bachelor, or this whole bachelor degree maybe should go away, or just becoming more focused, more specialized, correct? And
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't go away. We should still train people for the right skill. We should train them basically for the right skills. So we should not limit training to teaching them basic coding, let's say, because if you teach them basic coding, the industry is not gonna is using basically agents for doing the basic coding tasks. And this is it's actually a dilemma, because right now at this time, for example, people let's say companies started laying off all the junior kind of developers, let's say, and only keep like senior developers, and they are using agents. Now, when these senior developers go away, and we don't have new junior developers that are growing to be senior developers in these companies, like what will happen? Essentially, we'll have like a gap where we don't have any more senior developers or any more senior humans, basically. Maybe we'll have senior agents or something, I don't know. But like, this is something that we need to think about. Companies will probably start like training humans to be senior humans so that they can take over like senior jobs from previous seniors, essentially. But like, we should like really think how maybe to early on collaborate with like industry and like understand collaborate like during undergrad, like just like have a lot of like collaboration with industry, with startups, with like to figure out like what are the right skills to teach our students that will not be obsolete.
Yeah, one comment I would say
by the time
is
they
that
graduate.
I think, like Hadi was saying, instead of teaching coding, teach engineering. You see the difference. Instead of teaching how to execute certain things, teach how you orchestrate a lot of agents or tools, how to use these tools, how to put a big system together. So so it's going to be a challenge to elevate from a specific, you have to start with a specific task, but also you have to kind of become a little bit more broader about your vision and go with the first principle. So critical thinking, first principle approaches are I think, going to be essential for the next curriculum that you want to do. And I want to mention something, thanks Fadlo for that. This idea of democratizing is so essential, but I'm hoping also that at some point we have a strategy that will link academia with the private sector, and it could be also a collaboration between the private sector and maybe there's already some ideas around that.
Sam, there's no choice. I don't think the universities will survive.
Okay, good.
I mean, the universities have been ossified for a long time, but we're seeing with what you can get online. I'm not saying it's the same as university experience. We have to focus on the university experience. We have to partner with the private sector, but in countries like Lebanon where the public sector needs our help, also the public sector. But yeah, the universities are going to have to evolve.
Okay, good.
To add something. So first of all, I think that we should continue to teach the basic things. Yeah. Like when I went to school, we had graphic calculators, but we still had to do the integrals. We still had to actually solve things. We had to learn assembly language, even though we had compilers and we could just go to Python or C or whatever it is. So I don't think we should skip teaching coding or skip teaching anything that's very fundamental, important, because that's very important for us to understand the whole stack. The second thing is taste matters more than anything at this point. And I think we do well at that in Lebanon, especially at AUB. We do educate our students to be not just tasteful, but also to have that drive and passion, to have that motivation, to want to succeed, which we should continue to do and do more of as well. And so it's more like we should keep doing everything that we are doing, but maybe add a layer of introducing these tools. But this is where I'm a little bit scared, because I was talking to actually professors from UCLA yesterday. And one professor told me, keep in mind this is UCLA, this is not even AUB. He told me that I can't do research anymore because I can't compete with the frontier research labs because they have access to all these models. And they can easily spend $20,000, $30,000 to prove theorems and do science with these models. I can't afford it, especially these days in the US with the NSF funding, all the stuff that's happening. And so I'm just afraid that if at one point, and this goes back to what you were saying with Jensen saying every engineer has to have $250,000 worth of tokens to be productive. I mean, imagine we want our students at AUB to be very productive, and we need the equivalent of $250,000 of tokens for them to be competitive and to learn. I'm not sure where we're going to get that capital. So unless somehow the technology gets so much cheaper, and with the diffusion of open weight models, and we can run them on our laptops, and we don't need to have a massive cloud compute infrastructure, this scares me. Because then there's going to be a divide in terms of the capabilities and economies, especially in Lebanon.
Yeah, and also like the margin of error, because essentially juniors learn by mistakes. Like God knows how many mistakes I've made, early in my career.
Right.
So now with models competing with juniors, right, the margin of error becomes even smaller and smaller. So Natalie.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of, oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh, please.
So I agree with a lot of what was said around focusing on the fundamentals, but also shifting what the fundamentals mean to be current. Like the goal is not to build something that is going to answer the problems of today. It's going to have to adapt because the industry is moving fast. I think the world doesn't need necessarily, or the people who are going to change the field are not the people who are going to necessarily only do like the best prompt engineering. So they need to inherently understand the systems, and the fundamentals are still important. But I think everybody else also said this of how important it is to think critically. Like the job of an engineer, or how Hadi is defining it as like senior developer, is really critical thinking, understanding what to build, why they're building it, and not taking like a no for an answer, really doing things in a tasteful way. And I think teaching that is something AUB has always done really well. And I think hanging on to that outside of the noise of AI would be also great. And I think on another note, like AUB also has a real advantage that it's strong across many disciplines. It's medical field, for example, like the medicine is one of them. So it would be important for the students who are at the school to really interact and work across different schools on maybe real-world applications that will bring benefits. I think the biggest breakthroughs are not necessarily going to be just AI technology, but it's how we apply AI to the different fields.
Thanks. I think, yeah, Ali, maybe you can get the mic.
So if someone has a question, please wait for the mic. While the people on stage might hear you, we have colleagues back in Lebanon who are listening in, so please wait for the microphone.
Hi, I'm Ali Khairallah from Ericsson. We have been deploying infrastructure for telecom for 150 years. I think Murad is being too gentle in his questioning. You need to be challenged, I guess.
Go for it.
The issue is that, emerging countries, including Lebanon, lack infrastructure. I think, all the points that you're making are excellent, but they assume a certain level. I mean, even in the US, I think it was mentioned that we're talking about small nuclear power stations.
Yes.
Imagine Lebanon having to deal with this, right? So I think there needs to be deeper, maybe, thinking about how emerging countries, in our case Lebanon, and AUB being a shining light in the region, I hope, for a long time to come, about how to address that. I mean, I think addressing the insides of the, say, computing science program or something, I'm sure we can do, and you can help and all that. That is, I have no doubt about that. But I think we need to do a little bit more thinking about how to function in a world which does not look like Silicon Valley. Right? I mean, even the rest of the US is not ready for what's coming out of here. So imagine if you go thousands of miles all the way over there. There's a lot of, World Bank programs, and the US has an AI for export program, and China has the other thing, and so on. But those are kind of very high-level strategic programs and so on that have political consequences. But if we go a little bit below that, we need to think about how AUB can play a role in this complicated world, not the simplified Silicon Valley world. So try to answer that.
Yeah. I can take a stab on this because I already alluded to this a bit earlier. I agree. I think having access to compute power and the power itself will be the biggest threat. I know like now as the university is trying to do that, it would probably bring some hope. But I think that being able to develop AI applications and build them and ship them does not require that you have the GPUs in Lebanon premises. Like today, Today, a lot of these things are being hosted in Azure or AWS and others. They're distributed all over the world. But you can still own the application, build it, or actually do the fine-tuning of the model on those, and ship it there without having, all you need is a reliable internet connection. Hopefully that's also, this is probably the area I think definitely will be an area of, I think, immediate attention, maybe keep the internet connections working. Maybe I think next step is like bring GPUs and bring more power. But if we just have reliable internet connections in Lebanon, people can build agents, people can even fine-tune models remotely, and they can ship them. And we can build applications that consumers could be in Lebanon, outside Lebanon, could be anywhere. That could be the area where I think we should jump in and embrace.
Yeah.
Peter, you want to?
Yeah. Quite frankly, I don't think we're bottlenecked by the size of the country or the talent or what AUB can or should be doing. The elephant in the room is the security of the country, the political division that we have and governance and so on and so forth. So as much as we can talk about what can AUB do and how can we leverage these tools and AI, and we will, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of top people graduate from AUB and go on to do amazing things. But if we really want all of that to happen in Lebanon, the biggest bottleneck is security and also stability in the region. And that's well above at least my pay grade to try to figure it out. But I think that is where we should start. But if we assume that somehow gets resolved, let's just imagine for a second, then I think we have a lot of countries to aspire from. Singapore is such a small country that, like Lebanon, is positioned in a nice spot that is able to have an incredible GDP per capita. And I think that, given our talent, with AI, we'll have the ability to retain that talent in the country, because with AI, what I'm seeing and hearing, even from the experts on this panel, is that you don't need super large teams and massive companies to build apps. You can literally vibe code the app. And so imagine now in Lebanon with a lot less resources, if you have good ideas and good training and good taste, how much you can build. And we can become extremely competitive. We don't need to leave Lebanon to come to Silicon Valley to join Google, 180,000 employee company, in order for us to feel productive and to be competitive. But I think there is a prerequisite that we, unfortunately, until today, still do not have.
So just to reemphasize a few things, I think obviously it's going to be a multi-phase approach. Assuming that the stability is back, and we all pray for that, what Fadlo said about this collaboration between the private sector and universities, I think this is going to be the foundation, and we'll have to start small. First, go after the compute infrastructure that's outside the country, start with something small, few models or applications. And then once we have the infrastructure in place as partnership with the private sector, I think this is where it's going to be starting. And eventually you can grow from there, but you need to start somewhere.
Thank you. And I think we have a couple of questions from the audience. So I'm going to rely on Justin and Dina to tell me the order. Please, Doctor.
So sorry to keep interfering, but no, Peter, I don't agree with you. Or Sam, it doesn't come back on its own. Okay, so you're not going to get security in Lebanon on its own. On the contrary, you can contribute to that. The only way to get out of this mess, in my opinion, is to regrow the middle class, which disappeared during the war and was erased post-war, okay? Let's be very honest about what happened post-war. Wealth disparities in Lebanon grew at a faster rate than almost anywhere else. So the rich got extremely rich, and everyone else left. They left, except they waited, if they get someone into AUB, like you guys, and then that person left. So the only way to get security, to get peace in countries like Lebanon, Palestine, is to regrow the middle class by having jobs there. And with jobs being virtual to some degree, I think you can make a tremendous difference in restoring security. Because one phenomenon that we observe across several hundred years, people with small families, 2, 3 kids, who are studying and who are doing well, they don't get into violence. It is absolutely essential that we get that clear. security, peace is not coming back to the Middle East on its own. It is an economic model as much as it is a social or political or, military model.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for an excellent panel, excellent discussions. My name is Fadi Kordahi. I'm faculty at University of California, Irvine. And if you don't mind, I'd like to bring discussion back to a more generic nature. Well, there was a recent paper that came out in February of this year in Nature, one of the top journals, arguing that the age of AGI is already here. And they present an argument against the arguments that some researchers give that we're not there yet. I'd like to know the opinion of the panelists about that. There's also a follow-on question, which is, from an academic research point of view, how do you see the emergence of these incredibly complex models? I'm using ChatGPT 5.2 Pro, and these capabilities are giving me a pause about the role of research in this environment. Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? And I'd like your opinions on these two ideas.
Mashhoor, you want to address that?
Yeah, I can start. It's a really great question. Thank you. To be honest, like this whole, are we close to general intelligence? I think that's really a question mark still. I think there's two rooms here of argument. Some believe we're getting closer. Some believe we're getting further. Depending where you're sitting on the research side, if you're sitting on the applications, looking at how it performs, probably, like me, you say it's far away from being there. If you're trying to get closer, if you're closer to the training of the model, you're seeing some outcomes. And I know a lot of people who are sitting closer to the models and still don't believe that. But again, I don't know what OpenAI is hiding, Anthropic are hiding, so they may be hiding there more than when we know today. So they might be having some better models and they think that's getting there. That's on the first one. The second question, I think it was about research, right? I actually, being also actively doing research all the time, I feel this tools has made it so much easier to accelerate research. I think a lot of the time when we do research, it was basically you have to go and figure out which right content to bring in, to analyze, to make decisions. I think now you can easily get the right answers by having this extended thinking mode and deep research from the models. But myself, I don't trust one model, so I always I go to ChatGPT, I go to Gemini, and then go to Claude and try to collate the answers to get the right answer, because I think each one of those would have some kind of its own bias and training on the tools it's used. And also always double check those, some of the answers could not be the right answers. And always try to, one thing I think that I would help in this, especially these models we talked about in the post-training, these models are being trained to explain themselves. You can tell if the model has confidence by explaining itself. Explain the steps, explain why you're saying this. For example, when you look at the explanations, sometimes you could tell that it's not doing a good job or not.
I could maybe offer a few thoughts here as well. I think I don't think anyone agrees on the definition of AGI anyway, but the way I would define it is the human capabilities that we have of maybe seeing a few patterns and really extrapolating from that, being able to look at a completely new domain and being able to really do well in that. My experience has been that the models are not there yet. I'll give you a very simple, contrasting thing I'm experiencing every day. I'd never written front-end code in my entire life, and a few weeks ago, I was shipping front-end code in production. There was no way I could have done that without an AI model. But then I tried to do this very simple task of putting some results I got in a spreadsheet to send to someone. And the results were complex, very well formatted, but then I kept getting this table that would turn blue. And I kept saying, bake the background white, and it would turn blue. And so I really think we're not there yet. There are tasks that the models are really good at. Those are the ones that it's been trained on the most. But when you put it in a completely new domain, something it doesn't know, very few patterns that it's been exposed to, it's not doing that well. So that really tells me at least that AGI isn't here yet. In terms of whether it would help or hurt research, I really think it depends on how somebody is using the models. I think Mashhoor touched on this, but if you work with the models in a way that's like critically looking at what the models are outputting, knowing what to ask the models, how to give it instructions so that it would go off and research on its own, contrast different research, and come back, and you have some sort of validation step to make sure that it did the right thing, that is really powerful, and it kind of helps the researcher scale in ways that couldn't have been done before, or it would have just taken a very long time. But without that critical thinking component, without that validation, I think somebody could maybe start using AI irresponsibly or veer off in different ways. So.
Maybe I can add a couple of words here. So I think, it really boils down to the definition of AGI. And at OpenAI, many people define it as a model that can transform the economy and cause some economic transformation. And we are definitely there in that sense. And we see it from, revenues, from the number of enterprises and companies that are just heavily using these models to transform how they operate. So in that sense, we have entered the kind of age of AGI from the perspective of many people. But in terms of reliability, with one click, it just gets you what you want, we're definitely not there. From the sense that if you have an expert, a human expert, they can multiply their productivity 10x, 100x, 1000x, we're definitely there in that sense. Now regarding research, the models are pretty good at research. For example, let's look at math. They are able to they're probably better than 99.999% of mathematicians. We have some of the best mathematicians at OpenAI, and they are living kind of in a weird situation where the models are much better than them at their career has kind of I work closely with one of them, and he says it's just his career has the model is able to replicate every single thing, every single paper that he has done. And now he's just focusing on working with this model to come up with the next proof, and just observing how these models are proving new theorems and solving unsolved problems. So I think research will be more and more cooperating with these models to ask the right questions and basically iterate with them to unlock more and more research. Yeah. I've heard it from many people at OpenAI who joined after finishing their PhD, and they say okay, my PhD with these models would have been completed in few months instead of 5 years. Yeah. So we're definitely accelerating research. I'm using accelerating a lot because we are actually in an inflection point and things are accelerating, and we should think about this word a lot because it is real, and it's deep as well. So yeah, I can for sure see the models helping any researcher in the world, multiplying their impact essentially.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Hadi. So we have two questions here.
So I want to ask a question on regulation. So we've obviously focused on the positives of AI, but there's a potential dark side and a lot of concern around that. So do you think guardrails should be erected here around AI? If so, how? By whom? How do you view the potential for creating a situation here which we have an optimal outcome and not a negative one?
I'll try to take a stab at that. So when we talk about guardrails, there are many AI systems that are deployed in many different environments. So if we talk about consumer AI, for example, the guardrails should be around self-harm. Chatting with an AI, should it encourage me to commit a suicide if I'm feeling depressed or sad or angry? And there's tons of discussion today in the community, is it free will? Should the AI actually take a stance? Should it have, what philosophy should it adopt even? I am personally of the opinion that we should always encourage people to actually do what humans in general, in aggregate, think is for their better. But then when it comes to governments using AI, especially in wars, there's a lot of discussion around should we use AI to develop more powerful bombs and select targets and surveillance and all these questions. And it's unfortunate, but I don't think AI is going in the right direction on that front. And I don't think that we're winning that debate, especially with the OpenAI Anthropic debacle that happened recently with the Department of War using AI in literally this last war that's happening. But beyond the guardrails around safety and security, I think that with agents, there's a lot of prompt injection attacks. So you connect your agent to your bank account, and you start interacting or transacting, and then there's a potential for a third party to exfiltrate your, any information about your account. And those systems are actually not very well understood. Shopping, deep research on the web, any sort of even calling tools, what can go wrong? How can an adversary infiltrate and then exfiltrate some personal data or any valuable information? We still don't have good defenses for them. It's a very widely open problem to defend against these types of context hijacking and prompt injection attacks. But there is at least consensus that we need to solve these types of questions. So it remains widely open.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peter. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for this panel. The panelists are going to be around. If you have any questions, please approach them and ask them. I really want to thank everybody here. Thank you. Thanks.